Microsoft is employing full-screen ads.
Implement a feature known as Recall, which periodically takes screenshots of your computer.
End of free security updates for Windows 10.
Don't even get me started on the Windows taskbar.
Why do you need to install updates? What updates? Some more f***ing spyware? It doesn't even give you a choice to say no.
Alright, before we get into it, I'm going to promise you something up front. If you stay to the end, I'm going to give you one piece of advice that will either save you money or save you from a security headache later this year. And it's not some fluffy update your PC advice. It's a practical move you can do that makes an older machine feel faster without upgrading the hardware. And it also sidesteps a lot of the Windows 11 drama. Because right now the internet is absolutely flooded with Microsoft fearbait. Microsoft stock is crashing. Windows 11 is collapsing. Everyone's fleeing to Linux. Copilot is spying on you. And my take is simple. A lot of this content is exaggerated, but the emotional core is real. People feel like Microsoft is pushing harder than ever, and trust is starting to crack. And when trust cracks at the operating system level, it doesn't matter how many billions you make in cloud and AI, people start planning their escape. So let's break down what's actually happening, what's overhyped, and what you should do if you're a normal person who just wants their computer to work. First, the stock crash panic. This is the easiest fear content on earth because you can take any bad day on the chart and scream bubble burst. And yes, Microsoft has had sharp down days tied to broader AI sell-offs and investor mood swings. But calling it a collapse is usually clickbait. The real story isn't Microsoft is dead. The real story is Microsoft is priced like it has to win the AI era flawlessly. And when expectations are that high, even a small wobble gets framed like a disaster. So stock crash thumbnails are basically emotional theater. But here's where it matters. When a company is under pressure to justify hype, it tends to do two things. One, it pushes harder on monetization. Two, it pushes harder on control. And that brings us to the part people actually feel in their daily life. Windows 11. Windows 10 support ended on October 14th, 2025. That date changed everything. Because before that, Windows 11 was optional. After that, it became pressure. And the pressure feels personal, because Microsoft didn't just say upgrade, they built a wall. TPM requirements, CPU compatibility lists, secure boot. And for a lot of people, it translates to one sentence. Your computer is fine until we say it isn't. So when you see Windows 11 boycott or global revolt, I agree the language is dramatic. But the behavior underneath it is real. People aren't rioting. They're doing something worse for Microsoft. They're refusing quietly. They're staying on Windows 10 longer. They're buying refurbished machines. They're delaying upgrades at work. They're telling their friends, don't bother. And then Microsoft does the thing that fuels the fire even more. It makes Windows feel less like a product you own, and more like a service you're being guided through. Microsoft account nudges, default online integration, more recommendations, more prompts, more stuff you didn't ask for. And whether Microsoft intends it or not, it creates a vibe that your PC is no longer truly yours. Now let's talk about the Linux mass exodus narrative, because this is the one people get wrong in both directions. No, half the world is not switching to Linux tomorrow, that's fantasy. But yes, Linux is absolutely getting a wave of curious users, and it's not because Linux suddenly became magic, it's because Windows got heavier, noisier, and more intrusive. Here's the tech perspective on why people are leaving for Linux, and why it can legitimately make an older PC feel like you upgraded it. Windows today runs a lot of stuff in the background by default. Some of it is useful, some of it is telemetry, some of it is experience features, some of it is vendor bloat, some of it is app suggestions, and some of it is just layers. So even if your CPU is decent, and even if your RAM is enough, Windows can still feel sluggish because the baseline overhead is high. The operating system itself is asking for more resources just to exist. Linux can feel faster on the same machine because you can choose a lighter setup. You can run a lightweight desktop environment. You can avoid OEM bloatware entirely. You can run without the same constant background ecosystem that Windows has built up over the years. So the big idea is this. On an older machine, the performance upgrade isn't always hardware. Sometimes the performance upgrade is simply lowering the operating system overhead, and Linux does that well. Less background noise, less helpful stuff, less forced ecosystem, and you also get another benefit that matters a lot right now: control. On Linux, you generally control updates more cleanly. You control what runs at startup. You control what's installed. You're not constantly being steered into an account or a browser or an assistant. Now, let me be honest, because people lie about this online. Linux isn't for everyone. If your entire life depends on specific Windows-only software, some corporate VPN client, niche accounting packages, certain Adobe workflows, or you rely on It Just Works printer drivers for a weird printer, Linux can be painful. But a lot of normal people don't need those things. They browse the web, they use email, they watch YouTube, they do documents, they do basic home stuff, and for that, Linux is completely viable now. Even gaming has improved massively because of Proton and the Steam ecosystem. Not perfect, but way better than it used to be. So the everyone is switching to Linux story is exaggerated. But the reason people are considering it is extremely real. Windows has become heavier and more controlling, and Linux feels like an escape hatch. Now we get to the richest fear vein of all: AI spying. This is where I'm going to add fuel to the fire a bit, because the direction is obvious. Microsoft wants Windows to become an AI-first platform, not just AI in an app. AI as a layer across your entire system. And when you hear phrases like agentic or assistant that acts on your behalf, you should translate that into plain English. Always on, always observing context, always ready to intervene. And even if Microsoft says it's local or it's secure or it's opt-in, the core fear is still valid. If your PC starts keeping a searchable memory of what you do, that's a new kind of risk, and it turns your computer into a diary. And diaries attract thieves. So if you're the kind of person who says, I've got nothing to hide, okay, but you still have passwords, banking, private messages, photos, health stuff, work documents, family details, client data, everyone has something worth protecting. Now here's the part where I tell you what to do, and this is the stay to the end payoff I promised. If you're on Windows 10 or you're feeling trapped between Windows 11 and paranoia, here's the playbook I'd follow. First, don't be casual about security. Unsupported operating systems become a magnet. You don't want to be the easiest target in the room. Therefore, if you're staying on Windows 10 for any reason, treat it like a short-term plan, not a lifestyle. Second, if you do move to Windows 11, go in with your eyes open. Assume the default settings are not optimized for your privacy or your sanity. Go through startup apps. Go through privacy settings. Turn off what you don't want. Don't just accept the factory defaults. Third, and this is the secret upgrade that saves you money. If your machine is older, still functional, and you're being blocked by Windows 11 requirements, or you're sick of the bloat, try Linux properly, the right way. Not by nuking your PC in rage, not by watching a random Linux is better hype video. Do it like a professional. Here's the exact method. Back up your important stuff first. Always, no excuses. Download a beginner-friendly Linux distro that's known for being smooth on older hardware. Examples: Linux Mint, Ubuntu, or Linux Lite. Create a bootable USB and run it in live mode first. This is the key. Live mode lets you test Wi-Fi, audio, Bluetooth, your screen resolution, and basic performance without installing anything. If it feels good in live mode, install it properly. Replace your heavy apps with lighter options where possible. LibreOffice for docs, Firefox or Brave, a simple email client, and for cloud, you can use browser-based versions. If you need Windows for one thing, consider dual boot or keep a small Windows partition just for that app. And what you'll notice, especially on an older laptop, is the machine suddenly feels like it can breathe again. Boot time improves, fan noise calms down, the system stops feeling like it's dragging a trailer, and you didn't spend a cent. That's the payoff. The cheapest upgrade right now is often changing the OS, not changing the hardware. So here's my final take. The fear-bait content online is exaggerated, but it's tapping into something real. Microsoft is pushing control, pushing accounts, pushing AI layers, and pushing hardware replacement cycles. And people hate feeling trapped. Therefore, the quiet rebellion is going to keep growing. Not because Linux is perfect, but because Windows is making escape feel reasonable. If you're still listening, comment Linux escape if you want me to do a follow-up episode where I give you a step-by-step Windows to Linux transition plan for normal people, plus the exact settings I'd lock down on Windows 11 to minimize the creepy stuff.
We are evolving the OS. Windows is now your canvas for AI and agents. We're innovating in 3 key ways. First, bringing AI and agents into your flow and making it more intuitive to use. And second, making Microsoft 365 Copilot more contextually helpful on Windows.
Windows 11 was supposed to be the clean break, the fresh start, the future. But in the biggest markets on Earth,
It's not accelerating.
it's stalling.
And after Windows 10 support ended, you'd think millions would rush to upgrade.
They didn't.
The stall nobody expected. Here's the number that should scare Microsoft.
In December 2025, Windows 11 sits at about 50% of Windows desktops worldwide. And Windows 10?
Still sitting in the mid-40s. After end of support.
That is not a clean migration. That's a split user base.
And splits are where platforms start bleeding. Major markets are moving, but not together. Now watch what happens when you zoom in. In the United States, Windows 11 is already the clear majority. In Japan, it's also surged. But in Germany, it's basically a coin flip.
And in India, Windows 10 is still ahead. So when Microsoft talks about global momentum, the global picture is actually uneven.
Some markets moved fast.
Others are dragging, and that drag is the story. Why users are holding the line.
This isn't one problem.
It's 4 problems stacked on top of each other. Problem 1, the hardware wall. Your PC runs fine, but Windows 11 demands TPM 2.0, secure boot, and specific CPUs.
So for a huge chunk of people, upgrade doesn't mean clicking a button. It means buying hardware.
And that's when normal users check out.
Problem 2, the account pressure. More users feel like Windows is turning into a service, not software. Even the bridge option, Windows 10 Extended Security Updates,
pushes people toward a Microsoft account and Microsoft services. So the people who stayed on Windows 10 to avoid lock-in feel the net tightening anyway.
Problem 3, trust.
Windows 11 keeps adding features that sound powerful, but feel invasive. The perfect example is recall. Microsoft says recall is designed with privacy in mind.
Stored locally, not shared with Microsoft. But the fear is simple. If my screen is being saved, who else can get it?
And once people feel watched, they start shopping for exits. Problem 4, enterprises don't upgrade.
They negotiate with reality.
Hardware refresh cycles, app compatibility, training costs, help desk pain, security approvals. So yes, Windows 11 is growing, but a lot of that growth is coming from new PCs shipping with it.
Not companies excited to move.
The quiet warning sign, education plus dev mindshare.
Want to see where this goes long term? Watch education and developers.
Microsoft literally decided to end Windows 11 SE, the school-focused edition meant to fight Chromebooks. That tells you something. Schools aren't the easy win anymore. And developers, they go where the tools feel fast, stable, and unannoying.
Once developers get comfortable outside Windows,
the default starts to weaken. What this means for Microsoft, this is why the stall matters. Microsoft doesn't lose because Windows 11 is bad. Microsoft loses because Windows stops being the obvious choice.
a stalled migration keeps Windows 10 alive longer than planned.
It normalizes extended security updates.
It grows the market for alternatives.
And it trains users to say, I can wait. And if you're Bill Gates watching that, this is the part where you lose it.
Because Windows dominance wasn't built on being good. It was built on being inevitable. What you should do next. Pick your path. Path 1. If your PC is compatible, upgrade to Windows 11. But lock it down.
Turn off what you don't want.
Make it boring. Path 2.
If you're staying on Windows 10, use extended security updates as a bridge.
Not a lifestyle.
Path 3. If you're done with the pressure, test and exit for 1 weekend.
Linux Mint,
Ubuntu, or Chrome OS Flex for simple machines. Because the first time you realize your computer still works without Windows, the spell breaks.
If you're still watching, drop STALL11 in the comments.